So 98% of all women do not get maternity paid leave to be with their babies after they have babies in the United States of America. This is pretty disgusting, is because it just teaches that the United States of America is full enough and we're not going to support mothers having babies anyway, or even taking care of their babies. So we have this housing and financial assistance that tax the shit out of our American citizens for all these low income houses and low HUD providing families. And literally, there are families that choose to get divorced so that they get better programs to help supply for their children, and or students that whose husbands will take over them as a dependent, and they will just not work because it's easier for one of them to be fudging in order to stay home with their children. And so the thing is, it's a very hard dynamic on women's rights and how to get paid as much as these men, plus pop out their babies. And then have the men say, now we want maternity leave and we want all these rights that women get. It's equal sex here in the United States of America. We have men transgenders having babies. I do think that if men transgenders are having babies and there was a man that was able to get pregnant, obviously through science and plastic surgery, and it's a transgender situation, they still deserve to be able to have paid maternity leave. Now, these men not popping out the babies can help do the mom a huge favor and go to work. And if the moms need some help, hopefully we can come up with paid programs where the government could be like French people, and send workers out to help moms out their first few months of being pregnant. And so, and maybe if they're married and a man is working, the man can get a pay raise for 3 to 4 months because his wife has become pregnant, and that we can call that the man's maternity leave. We're going to give you extra money because your wife cannot work, so you get some paid support because her income. And then if the government did like the French did and, offered paid workers to go in and help mothers out with their first few months, then you wouldn't see these disgusting, absolutely horrible conditions where women are pregnant all the way up to their full term, doing half-assed jobs at work, and then which only labels women to be worse at work and not as productive, because they're not when they're 6 months, 7 months, 8 and 9 months pregnant. If they're under 6 months, then you have a worker. For the most part, 50% of them can at least work and even go to the gym. But when you're going past 6 months, there is a liability with pregnant women. So what are we going to do with the state taxes and pregnant women and maternity leave? It's going to have to start with, well, we can't hire women because they get pregnant. Or the only women we can hire are menopausal women because we know they won't get pregnant. 55 and above if you're a woman to work here. No younger. And so we're going to end up coming up with that. And the thing is that we have so many men coming up out of the woodworks because of, I don't know, neutral sex ideas. And saying that we want the same rights. This is the last thing pregnant women need, are these fuck faces coming up saying we want the same rights. Ask your boss for more money because your wife had a kid. All right? Or go find work where you are working longer hours and have someone stay at home with the kid. It used to be that women could work and have kids and not have any discrimination about popping out children while working. But they had more support. And they're saying that a lot of women just weren't able to work. That's true, but we also had more support back then. Now we're not having as much support due to the high divorce rates being so high. Back then, the divorce rates weren't that high. Men pulled in extra hours, women stayed at home and raised their kids. After the kids were in school, women went to work and became nurses and teachers. Some judges and attorneys, but there was a family dynamic that existed. And now the divorce rates are so high, which are now blamed as much on women as men. So they're probably equal to blame for divorce rates. But, culture and the change of our media and education seems to not want attention and playing any part in divorces. Anyway, so needless to say, women are still having babies because sex still exists. Marriage and divorce now exist rampantly. And so, what are we doing with a bunch of displaced, divorced women that are pregnant, having babies? And, they'll get with another man and get another divorce and have another baby. They're pretty much being looked down on like crack mamas and anything else, but really they're just poor women trying to find relationships. And a lot of these women are in domestically violent situations. And so they're kind of mentally ill and uneducated. And we got a lot of men to blame for that. We really do. And so, family dynamic has been ripped out of the picture. And until family dynamics are put back into the picture and divorce rates are not so difficult and high, and they don't punish the people that are getting married and having a marriage and children, they always punish them for some reason. Higher taxes, higher insurance. I mean, it's ridiculous. And women, if they can't get work out there because of the discrimination of getting pregnant, and that's what women do, we get pregnant. So what it is that women either have to grow up, become gold diggers, plan out their pregnancy based off which men look better and what kind of kid they want to have it look like. We're going to pretty much start going to sperm donation banks to get qualified sperm from these men because family dynamic is out of the picture and it's difficult to be a single mom. And so, without a man. And so, one of the things I've done, because I happen to be one of those single moms that, don't get support from the community, work, from men, nothing. As a matter of fact, I get picked on more by the community, work, men, everything. By sharing my kid even. It's just horrific being a mom. And so there's a group of women. One woman really inspired me particularly. And she had a son that reached 18 years old. And she's like, I'm still ragging. I can have another kid. I want another kid. Because this was bullshit raising this kid in a divorce situation where I got little help, very little support, and low income jobs. Well, now that he's 18, I want to do it again. So this time the women are going to sperm donors, whether they're good friends that choose to sperm don, or, they pay for a good sperm donor. They want a good look to the kid, and so they go to a factory where people, that are qualified sperm donors go. And accordingly, the mom was able to raise her kid alone without a man, and the older child was jealous. And I see this often with moms that choose to have their kids later because they got married and tried to do the family thing and it was destroyed. And so they're having children on their own and by themselves at normal ages, older ages, in their 30s and 40s. And so this particular woman had a baby. A few years went by and the older kid's like, I'm very envious because that child is having a better childhood than what I have when I had my father, and this baby's fatherless by donation. And the mom's like, yeah, I can find plenty of male figures. I know who the donor is. It's not like I didn't know anything or history of what type of body type or whoever's going on. And there's plenty of men out there for there to be male role models. And so, I can still have a kid. But it still doesn't help the fact that I don't have maternity leave or any of this assistance. But because there is assistance out there for women who are poor and don't work and are single versus women who are married, do work, have to lose work, and have no maternity leave when they are done having their baby. They go back to work. My sister even got fired from a job once because she got pregnant, had to have her baby, and when she went back to work, they had another replacement. And so they're not supposed to do that, but they do. And this is a married woman, a professional woman, and these are the women that are bitching. I'm a professional. I went out and got a degree. I have this family, and when I have a baby and I do everything right and it's planned, I don't get any support from my husband, his work, or my work. But these women who are now husbandless will be like, you know what? I'm going to apply for the assistance I need. I'll have a baby without a man. I don't have to go through custody issues. Once they get over the assistance needed base, they go back to work. Or they can stay on the assistant needed base until after the kid is in kindergarten. And then they go back to work. It's now easier to qualify for the help you need if you do not get married. And it's also better now if you're a woman to not get pregnant by a man that you might possibly divorce later on. Go out and get pregnant by sperm donors or friends that choose to be sperm donors, because then you don't have to go through custody cases and horrible issues like that. So the way I see the future going, since it's just not fair, is that they're sending men and women to not have legal marriages or be married at all. And now we can marry anything and everything in our dog. So marriage doesn't exist in terms that were of ordinary terms 50 years prior. Now what exists is that women are popping out babies from various lovers. Lovers are leaving them and they're leaving them because they're not taught about family values. It's very difficult to be married, and there's high divorce rates nowadays. Domestic violence and other abuses are opening up and being talked about, to where these things are no behaviors, and women do now have more of a voice, and they got such a voice that men are now in competition with them. And so they're not getting the help they need due to men trying to also compete with their physicality and abilities and disabilities to have children, depending on what sex you're talking about. But one thing I'm noticing to be easier, if women want to have children, don't marry the man you have your children with. 2, because you might get divorced. And 3, he might fight over ripping your motherhood away by sharing your kid with him. And that's not why we became mothers. We became mothers to raise our children. Now, the government isn't helping these men help the women. And the government does help women who don't have men out, helping them out. And so the government will actually help a woman who is single and manless and pregnant versus being married and pregnant. It's just how it goes. And if you think about it, there's nothing wrong in that. If you're married and pregnant, maybe there's mother-in-laws or anyone else that will jump up and assist you. There should be people that come and help and have jobs, governmental jobs, to help these women. But they don't exist, and women will ultimately lose their jobs. And so we have these things called women jobs and men jobs. And a lot of women jobs revolve around being nurses and teachers, which is surprising because nurses and teachers, that's very difficult work. And so I personally don't think teachers should be bitching about getting more money, while nurses, RNs and LPNs aren't getting any more money either. And they're about the equal pay. And RNs and nurses are helping people die, and they're a really gross, sick environment. And the school teachers have to worry about gun shootings and other issues, so both very hard environments. And these are women jobs, babysitting jobs. All these jobs are the low income jobs. Men are able to work higher paid jobs like industry, trains, work on mechanics and large things, unless you got a burly woman. And burly women aren't very common. I don't think burly women should be discriminated on having a man's job. Other than that, I think that if a man looks at me with a train job, and you have coal and beams and heavy technical tons of weight to work with, they say you ain't getting hired because you're little and you can get pregnant. All right, this is true. This is true. 98% or 6% of women do not get maternity leave. And if you want maternity leave, don't get married. Because no matter what, you can go get your education when the kids grow up and be that attorney or judge afterwards. But don't get married if you want better support, if you have no support. Just don't get married. And I'm going to advise that every woman goes to a sperm donor so they don't have to fight custody cases and can raise their children. And I think that if women separate it completely from men in this regard and raise children, I don't think men should be around children unless they're 12 and above, as far as full-time dads are concerned. Because they're so into wanting, they're so poly and jumping around, and they can be gone and leave their kids and stuff, and they don't mind not taking care of them. So tax those men, and women, step away from these men. Don't get married. Use the system so that you can raise your children and have a maternity leave. And stop getting married to these men. And then you can have as many boyfriends as you want when you want them. If depends on how you do it. You don't have to worry about ever getting married. And you don't have to worry about a divorce of any kind. You can have your couple kids by the men you choose or choose to have flings with. And you have contracts made. And then leave out marriage. Don't get married civilly anymore. Don't live with these men. And when the men want rights to their kids, you'll be ready for them to have rights to the kids. And it ain't under 12, because no man should be raising a kid by himself under 12 without a woman in the house. And that goes for gay men, gay women. There has to be a woman in the house. I don't care. And if one of those gay guys are being a woman, fine. There has to be a woman in the house. And if marriage isn't working and doesn't work, use the government and use the state rights that they tax people. Leave these men and go to sperm donors. This is the new wave of women. Do not marry the men you have sex with. Make sure they're sperm donors. Stay single and happy as single moms, and use that governmental assistance to get your education so when the kids are grown, you can be the judge. You can be the attorney. But raise kids first. Get your education at the same time. Use the governmental assistance. Fuck these men, because they're going to divorce you and treat you like shit anyway. Let them have what they want. They want their whores and gold diggers. They want their wives. They want both. Let them have both. And if you're not willing to work with both, then do what I'm doing. And I'm not the only one doing this. A lot of women are doing this, and it's the new wave.